Even Michael Saylor was like, I know. We know that your wife is a maxi. We know that. But she is. And her thing always was, when I started buying Ethereum, she was like, why buy Pepsi when you can buy Coke? There is no second best.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everybody. What? I'm supposed to do it, right?
Hey, why don't you introduce the show?
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Bitcoin with us. You got your star, Nat Brew, as she's known throughout the brewery community, primarily Malt and Mold on 2nd Avenue. And I'm Wee-T. I'm TJ Miller, but because we're all here together, they call me Wee-T.
I think you did that better than I ever have. So thank you.
I don't think that's true. I'm a huge fan, Natalie. We should start there. That's why I brought you balloons. Wide shot.
We've got balloons here.
Wide shot.
You might notice the dollar signs cross up. We're going to obviously talk about Bitcoin.
Are we not doing a wide shot? There it is.
There you go.
Look at that. I made it myself. I was like, do you have any balloons that are orange? And he said, yeah. I've got the round ones and the star-shaped ones. But these were plain. And I said to him, I go, you don't have a Bitcoin balloon, do you? And he goes, no, I cannot say that we do. And I go, yet. And he goes, yet. And I love that because it's probably that he doesn't care about Bitcoin or doesn't understand it. And certainly it's not a dog. But just the idea that in that moment, he was like, yet. And I don't, it was either, I don't know what that is, or, yeah, we will one day have a Bitcoin.
TJ,
each of the million.
I've been so excited to chat with you. I didn't realize that you were a Bitcoiner until I saw you at the Nashville Bitcoin conference. So how the heck did you get into Bitcoin?
Well, I'll tell you, but I do love that. That's what everybody says. I didn't realize you were a Bitcoiner, as if I was doing something all these years where everyone should have been like, I think he's a Bitcoiner. But I like your sound guy because he's cracking up over there. Are you mic'd? Let's mic him. Can we mic him? Yeah, I was I like to say I learned the term orange pilled just pretty recently, like in the last year or two. But I started sort of in 2018. And Kate and I, that's my wife, Kate. I'm 11 days older than her. And around that time of year, I really hold it over. Respect your elders, Kate. She's not going to watch this, but she'll feel that I said something about her. She and I are friends with the Winklevoss twins. And so I met Tyler and Cameron at the series finale of the first season of Silicon Valley. And we just said hi, we said hello. And then randomly we were walking down the street in our neighborhood and there were these two tall, handsome fellows that looked, I would say, exactly like each other. In fact, I'd venture to say they were identical. And so, cut to a wide. So I saw I saw these two, and I said, I think that's the Winklevoss twins. And Kate, we did this once before with Steven Spielberg, where I was on the street in New York, and I go, Kate, look at that dog. And she was like, whoa. I go, that's such a handsome dog. Who would own a dog like that? And I look up, I go, I think that's Steven Spielberg. And Kate's like, it is Steven Spielberg. It's like, should I go talk to him? She's like, yeah, you know him. Go and talk to him. So it was a similar thing with the Winklevoss twins. I saw them and I kind of stopped and then they recognized me. And we had this really cool interaction that you sometimes have, which is, I said, oh, you guys, what are you doing in New York? And they're like, we live here. Like, do you live in New York or do you live in LA? And I said, we live in New York. I hate LA. They're like, we do too. And then we exchanged numbers and they were kind of like, yeah, we should hang out. And there's a thing in New York that's different from Los Angeles, which is when people say that in LA, they don't mean it. When they say it in New York, they mean it. And so then we went and we had dinner with them and we just kind of struck up this friendship. We went to King Kong. We were at their first March Junction show and their last show. Nice. And they came and saw me do stand-up. And it was really cool. And what they told us sort of was, we're into Bitcoin. We're into this thing, Bitcoin. I said, well, I heard of it, but I didn't know anything about it. And they said, you should really look into it. And I was like, oh, all right. And then what I tell people is I never really got orange pilled. No one sort of said, hey, there's this thing. Let me explain it to you really quickly, or read the Bitcoin Standard, or which is why I didn't read it for years and years. But I just went a little bit into the rabbit hole, you just kind of peek over and then you're like, whoa, this is so cool.
You fall in.
And then you just go and go and go. And that happened with enough time that, and I'll never forget, we were at dinner at this place called the Lambs Club. And I turned to Cameron, I go, you probably don't want to explain blockchain to me. Like, you're probably done explaining that. And he was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. And I was like, okay. So yeah, it's up to me. And so I just kept, and then when the pandemic happened, I didn't perform for 7 months. So between that and then when I did start performing during the pandemic, I just started giving myself a master's in like blockchain, crypto.
Wow.
And I just read hundreds and hundreds of hours about it. And Bitcoin was always kind of the most fascinating thing to me. But I have a friend, actually these other twins that live in Michigan. We call them the Michigan twins, but they're ETH maxis. So they know all about Ethereum. Look at her trying to be like, I respect that. Tell them they're wrong. Oh, God, sorry. Oh, I need a glass of water. They are going to miss out. So I learned a lot about Ethereum and kind of started to understand that more and learned about that also from the Winklevoss twins. And but always was really focused on Bitcoin. And the thing that I tell everybody, which even Michael Saylor was like, I know, we know that your wife is a maxi. We know that. But she is. And her thing always was, when I started buying Ethereum, she was like, why buy Pepsi when you can buy Coke? So you can buy Coca-Cola.
There is no
second best. What are you laughing
best.
about over there, Mike? There is no second best.
There is no second best.
And so that's what she would say. And she would say, look, you buy haute couture, you buy Chanel because it's vintage and there's only so many of it and it'll go up in value if, the less of those things there are. If she was talking about a particular purse that she wanted me to buy her, the less. And so she said, this particular piece, the less of them there are, the more it'll be. So she really thinks in terms of that scarcity.
Okay.
And also just Bitcoin in general. But yeah, so that's how I came to it. And I think it also is interesting that Kate kind of doesn't care. The particulars are less important to her, the tech of it, the cryptography, everything. What's interesting to her about it is conceptually what it is. And so she's really into the concept and the reasoning and all of that. So it was interesting when the ETFs passed and the institutional adoption started to happen and happen quickly.
Yeah. Coin Stories is brought to you by Genius Group, a Bitcoin treasury company listed on the NYSE under ticker GNS. Genius is on its way to hodling 1,000 Bitcoin in its treasury while educating the world on a Bitcoin-first future. Genius is launching the Bitcoin Academy with courses from Seyfedine Ammous, author of the Bitcoin Standard. Join the launch waitlist via the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes and receive the weekly Bitcoin Treasury newsletter. Genius isn't measured in IQ. It's measured in BTC. Next up, a quick word about my friends at Bitwise. They've been educating investors on Bitcoin for more than 7 years, have over $10 billion in client assets, and a team of 100 plus. Their weekly newsletter is a must read. It's written by their CIO, Matt Hogan, one of the best minds in the business. I highly recommend it. It's witty, bold, and quick. Takes just 5 minutes to read each week. So head over to bitwiseinvestments.com/CIO memo. And always, of course, carefully consider the extreme risks associated with crypto. Don't forget to join me in BTC Vegas this May and attend the 4th annual Women of Bitcoin Brunch. Use code HODL for 10% off your pass. Yeah, Wall Street coming in, legitimizing it. Well, I wanted to ask you something because I feel like people who have worked in Hollywood, acted in successful series or on movies, I feel like the perception is that everyone's extremely wealthy, is set. They don't ever worry about money. But I'm curious, like, what is your relationship with money and why do you feel like Bitcoin is something that everyone should look at?
I like this. She's kind of like, So everybody thinks that they're set. So tell us a little bit about your relationship with money and how much debt you're in. Are you in? Because, it's not true. It's like a lot of these people are not doing well.
Well, yeah.
No, I think
it's tough.
It's been so interesting to live in an inflationary moment. It's been so interesting to live in an inflationary moment.
Well, most people don't even know what inflation is.
What's going on with you?
It's just most people don't even know what inflation is.
She's just having a good old time, especially Hollywood stars. We don't even know. What do you mean? How much are eggs? $50? $60? Bring me an omelet and throw the yolks at my son. No, I mean, there's obviously people go on like celebritynetworth.com and they just think that you're this multi-millionaire. And, that doesn't take into account things like expenses or, I don't know, taxes.
Yeah.
But my relationship with money is that, what a strange question that I've never been asked. I wouldn't say I bathe in it, but I do sleep on a pile of it.
Well, were you someone that saved, like, took your money from your successful Silicon Valley
show? No, I blew it all on TVs.
Invested on stocks or what?
No, I invested in televisions. So I have a warehouse full of televisions. And I got to tell you, I couldn't even believe it, but those things lose value quickly.
They do.
So for a while, I was trying to make smart televisions my currency. And it didn't work. But I'll tell you, I've logged a lot of hours watching Roku. Next up, Tubi. I saved a lot of money as a youngster when I was on carpoolers, which is this. I saved a lot of money.
So you were a saver as an actor.
That's good. Yeah, I saved money and I spent it, but more on things that I thought were constructive to then kind of making more money or just being a person who's happier and in a better place to work, I think. But yeah, I saved money and I never carried debt. And I was really interested in investing because my father was big in investing. So I knew about equities and a diversified portfolio and all those sorts of things. But I never, and I thought you put your money in stocks, you have a wealth manager kind of look after it, and then you expect 4% to 12% return, ideally, in the stock market. And then I never really messed around with bonds or anything like that because I just wanted everything to grow. And then I never really had like a big savings account. I never kept like money.
Cash, yeah.
Liquid. I like cash a lot. Like physical, good hard cash. But maybe that's in part why I like Bitcoin, or certainly was attracted to it in the beginning. Because the reason I like cash is because it's person to person, or I guess peer to peer. And I just and I love something in New York, which is a lot of bodegas in some places. They've got a cash price and they've got a credit card price. Yeah. And I really like that because I think, that people should be encouraging one another to, pay and buy in cash. And you're not like trying to keep it away from the, it's not about like not paying the government. It's about if somebody gives you this and it's only to turn around and buy food,
Yeah.
Then I don't know. It's kind of strange to me that they're like, give me half of that dollar.
Yeah.
If you want to buy food with it, give it.
For sure.
So, I was interested in Bitcoin as being something. And then my wife is really interested. There's a story where they came to me, a Saudi Arabian comedy festival thing came to me and said, we'd like you to perform. And it was just an obscene amount of money because they don't care. It's all oil and slavery and stuff like that. They're just little things that make you money. And I went to Kate and I said, I don't know. I mean, this is quite a bit of money. And she said, I cannot condone that. And, there's no way. And they have princesses that are being held hostage and not allowed to leave. And she has a lot of very strong political and socioeconomic views of that part of the world. And I said, well, what if we take like 30% of it and donate it to a cause that was actually trying to help those people out? And that was interesting to see her kind of go, because ethics are important to her, but money is also important to her. And I'm a nihilist, so I kind of say like, well, we're going to make all this up as we go along.
So you take it and then you use it against them in a way.
That's what you would do. And then the rest you use for yourself, obviously. Put it in Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Take that, put it in Bitcoin, and then in like 10 years, go back there and just buy the country.
Right, exactly. If they're not mining it right now. And
we don't know. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
So why do you think more celebrities aren't into Bitcoin? Because you're one of, I feel like, very few.
I mean, I can't really think of anybody else. That's what I was talking about on Pomps. I'm just learning all of his nicknames. At Pomps lunch, he invited me to a lunch. Actually, I guess I more crashed it with the aid of a MicroStrategy Bitcoin advocacy CEO. And I, I sort of said to them, I'm not really, it was funny too, because these are all these like heavy duty, big institutional figures. And so they go, all right, go around and tell everybody who you are. And then I was kind of joking. I was like, I'm a television star and a movie star. And I was the voice of the Mucinex Booger and Jean Meh from the Emoji Movie. And I'm also a Bitcoiner. And you could just feel all of them be like, who is that? And I realized this is not my demographic. Right. So I think they all just thought that I was some blowhard guy. Yeah.
No, they had never seen Silicon Valley or any of your work?
I think some of them got it later, or maybe one or two. But my joke with all of that is at the end of it, I kind of go, and to my knowledge, really the only celebrity that is a Bitcoiner. Mm-hmm. There are people that, but I don't know, and I got into NFTs the last cycle because I'm really interested in ordinals and how to get people to understand ordinals. But the NFTs, I thought, now artists and people are going to get the residuals that the studios and the streamers took away. Mm. And so I did the first NFT stand-up comedy special.
Oh, wow.
But right as I was about to release it, the bottom fell out. And it's just like, that was the FTX of it all.
Yeah.
Which was so upsetting. So I still have that. I haven't put it out, the ordinal. So I'm interested in the artistic implications of the Bitcoin blockchain.
Is that something really important to you, to be able to use this type of technology so that people kind of, when they're working really hard and they're selling something, they don't always see the fruits of their labor, right? Other people profit from it, and there are gatekeepers along the way. Yeah. And in the celebrity or artistry world, right? I mean, you might create something and then 10 other people profit from it, but you don't. How does that even work?
Well, there's no more residuals. So you're sort of signing over who you are, and then they don't have to explain what the ratings are because there's no Nielsen ratings anymore.
For TV, everything, like if you get like a Netflix show.
Well, it's all streamers now, yeah.
So you get a buyout, basically.
Kind of, and then they'll sort of say, oh, well, we've got money for you. We have no idea if it's the right amount or anything like that. And so your union will try and figure that out, but it's just infinitesimal comparatively. And to go back to, I tried to explain the NFT concept to other stand-up comics, really smart, brilliant stand-up comics here in New York City. And and this relates to Bitcoin because they just said, well, so you're not going to put on YouTube at all? I go, no. And you're going to sell it to people? I was like, yeah, they can purchase the NFT. And then another guy was like, and so they'll own it. I was like, yes. And they go, and what's going to stop them from putting on YouTube? And I go, well, it would devalue their asset. So they can, but it would make their asset less valuable. And they were like, they just said no, because you have to, I think once you're a Bitcoiner, this all seems logical to you. But if you tell a plebe or just some civilian, here's this idea of scarcity, they're just like, what?
Why is it important? Yeah.
Like, why? What do you mean there's only so many? Because everyone knows, even in the back of their mind, especially with someone going, ooh, look at this crisp new bill. This is a freshly printed dollar. So it's just in their mind that these things are made by another entity.
Yeah.
And as many can be made as made. And then people they think that $1 only goes away when it's just like ripped to shreds or something. Yeah. Like they're taking money out and putting money in. Both of those things are happening. So I think that's, to answer the earlier question, I think that's a big reason the nominee celebrities are into it, for the same reason the nominee people are. It's just, and then my other theory is, I feel very strongly about this, to understand Bitcoin takes about 50 hours of study. You just have to learn about it. It's a different thing. It's a new thing. A different thing. When something is different and new, it's different.
This episode is brought to you by Casa, the leader in Bitcoin self-custody solutions, helping people like me secure their wealth with simple, powerful multi-key vaults. And now Casa is here to help businesses and even governments do the same. Introducing Casa Business, a secure, easy-to-use 3-key vault designed for small and large businesses with team signing capabilities and a web dashboard. Start your Bitcoin treasury the secure way and protect your assets. Get 10% off your Casa plan at casa.io/Natalie. If you use Bitcoin, you need a wallet that's fast, simple, and packed with features. That's why I love Speed Wallet. Send and receive Bitcoin or swap Bitcoin and stablecoins instantly. Shop gift cards, play games to earn Bitcoin, and explore mini apps. Download Speed via the QR code on the screen or the link in my show notes and use referral code CoinStories10 for 5,000 free sats. Next up, the Bitcoin way. Bitcoin is only freedom money if you control it fully. The Bitcoin Way can help you learn the skills to properly secure your Bitcoin in 100% self-custody with zero counterparty risk. Go to thebitcoinway.com/Natalie to speak one-on-one with the best experts. Your security and sovereignty are priceless, so don't gamble with your future and peace of mind.
Do you think someday there will be a big movie about this whole revolution that's happening?
Oh, yeah, for sure. But it'll be interesting because it didn't happen all at once.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen in 3 years.
Right.
And it hasn't happened in 10 years. So it'll be interesting to see how they could connect the dots. I think in the meantime, well, just to finish the 50 hours thing, it's like, it's really hard to get people to study after they graduate from any level. And so to say to somebody, it's going to take 50 hours for you to understand this, they're like, I don't want to. They can't even watch a Netflix series. They can't even finish White Lotus because it's 7 hours. Why would they possibly? And they're enthralled by it. So why the fuck would they? So I think just celebrities are kind of like, and the other thing I said to Pomp actually, because he said the same thing. He had the same question. I said, I think it's because it takes such a radical acceptance of a new way of thinking. It takes such a paradigm shift in the way that you understand not only money, not only the internet, but sort of life, you know, and how we would come to know about life and how it works and operates. And Hollywood, in my opinion, very much rewards people that do not think differently. So I guess that's a double negative, but Hollywood really rewards those who fall in line, who lockstep, sheep that can be herded. It's all that stuff. And I've never really been that way. And so if you think about it, how many Hollywood figures are truly mavericks or think very differently? And there's not a lot of them. And when those people score and make a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's big, you know. Jaws for Spielberg is big when they think about things differently. But there are very few of those people. So I think people kind of just, for whatever reason, aren't interested. But that being said, it blows my mind. It blows my mind all the time because all of us have told somebody like, do this thing. Just buy. I mean, I was when Bitcoin was $12,000 or something like that. I got it when it was $8,000. I remember telling people like, just put $1,000 into Bitcoin. And it's just and then you hear people, I was with somebody recently in Calgary, Canada. And, it was Bitcoin Sessions was up there and his buddy, oh my gosh, we were talking and he was really early. He was like 2011 vibes, like the earliest. And then he said, he was like, I was interested in as a payment system. And he spent 180,000 Bitcoin. Do you want me to say that again?
On what?
All the furniture for his new office.
Oh my gosh.
So he needed furniture for his office and he had Bitcoin. And so he sold 100, which I think he was saying, I mean, he said $1 billion, but it's like, no, but it would be worth
hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's wild. Yeah, I hear those stories and I'm always like, darn, I wish I was that early. But you wouldn't have known.
No, but you would have sold
Yeah.
180,000 Bitcoins because you couldn't have imagined that it would be worth $100,000. And that's what I always say too, is everybody has a story who got in really early where they sold all their Bitcoin. For one kid that I know, he was like, my dad, when it hit 2000, my dad was just like, you're a fool if you don't sell this now. You don't want to disappoint your father. And at that point, you've already proved him wrong. So in some ways, you just being like, ha, I was right, was worth selling your 50 Bitcoins at $2,000 a piece.
Yeah, you have to give credit to the Winklevoss twins because they were really early and they didn't sell.
And they held,
They have I heard that they have Bitcoin like all over the country or something.
So I want to do, that's what I'm going to do is I want to do a film about a Bitcoin heist.
Oh, that would be great.
And so within that, you know, you've got characters explaining what Bitcoin is to the other people on the crew who are just like, what are we stealing? Why are we stealing pieces of paper? What is this?
21.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Ocean's 21.
We should do that.
Somebody just got a cameo. I want to see her at the bank teller. But I do believe that that you need that as part of your story. That you spent the money, that you whatever, that you lost it, that you didn't think, because otherwise it's not really a story. You're just like the guy that everybody hates, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Winklevoss twins, I don't think ever were in a position where they really had to spend the Bitcoin, you know?
Yeah.
So there are other people where so my thing that I say to everybody, I want to make this really clear. Do you want to go to a wide shot for this to show the balloons? You never spend Bitcoin unless it's for something that will change your life, which could be to get a bigger house, to have kids, to get a new car that'll make you happier on your commute every single day that you go to work, to buy something very special for a parent or a loved one or a partner, something like that.
I like that.
But outside of that, you got to just keep stacking sats. And that's what I do too. I find myself every so often, I like to do superstitious numbers. So if I'm in a certain place and I hear something, then I'll do the area code of the place that I'm in and I'll buy that much Bitcoin.
Wow.
Or if it hits a new thing and it is, then I'll do some version of the date for that. So I do like to do that stuff. I think that's pretty funny. But I still, you know, I'm still stacking. And I just recently have become, because that same guy who spent 180,000, he's like, that's why Bitcoiners are so cheap, because they all have a story where they're like, if I had only... So now they're all back to just stacking a little bit at a time. And I like that. I was talking to a guy, I thought about this. I thought about talking about this with you. So I thought about this. I was backstage at Nashville and I was emceeing the whole main stage. And this guy came back there, and I won't say who it was, but he was a political figure, and that's about all you need to know. And he came backstage and we started talking about Bitcoin. And he was clearly there for political reasons, but I forget exactly what. But I was talking to him, I was talking about becoming a whole coiner, you know, because I don't have any Bitcoin. But I was sort of talking to him about becoming a whole coiner and what that means and how many. So I kept doing that. And I realized that one of the reasons I love the concept of becoming a whole coiner is because it feels really true to the spirit of Bitcoin and what it's supposed to be about and the empowerment and all that stuff. And that's Kate. One of her big things is if a woman is trapped somewhere and she has no access to banking or money, Bitcoin can be the way out. So that's another thing that and so I believe in it. And so I was explaining the whole coiner thing to him, and he was like, wait, so they just want one coin? And I was like, no. I mean, I think they would like more than one coin. He's like, one coin. I have a whole bunch of Bitcoin.
What? They said that?
Yeah. And so he said that. I'm not going to do the they, them. All right. This guy said this, and I almost threw up, not in a little bit in my mouth, in his mouth. I almost threw up in his mouth because he was so far away from understanding Bitcoin outside of what it has become in many ways, which is a politicized
unfortunately,
talking point. So that's really, really frustrating. But that was the thing where I really felt like I just was like, this is not cool that Bitcoin is becoming this. And I talked to Saylor about that. And I said, you know, Bitcoin needs to be cool for people to get into it. That's why I'd love to do a Bitcoin heist movie. But, you know, it's...
Yeah, you don't want it to be weaponized by politics or anything. Yeah.
And it's... I was trying to figure out how to say. It's like... It's one of the most beautiful things. And so to hear this guy kind of go, these stupid idiots, you know, they just want one coin. It's like, well, they only have the means to build to one coin. And there will be so few ever.
Millionaires will not be able to have a coin, which is crazy to think about.
Never. Because by the time that they get in, it'll be worth more than $1 million. So and their net worth they couldn't possibly take.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a really interesting thing too. And then another thing that I was thinking about talking about is like, don't you think it's crazy that people will like, I know there's that you buy Bitcoin at the price you deserve, but just that there are people who right now, I'm like, it's not too late. Get in now. And they're like, not too late. It's already at 100,000. And that happened every step of the way. It's at 10,000. Well, it's at 25,000. That's it for me. 50 grand. I can never afford a whole coin. And then telling people you don't need a whole coin. You know, that was my sort of, I was hoping that Ethereum would teach people that you don't need a whole coin, like conceptually. I don't know, because it's like closer to cash. And so I was hoping for that. But I also hoped that I think one of the problems is now so many people own Bitcoin that don't understand it or know anything about it. They just know the price change and what their brokers have told them.
Yeah. Because
BlackRock and all these huge, we're friends with Ophelia Branca, who's 21 Shares. Have you met her? She's awesome. And she really understands Bitcoin and loves Bitcoin, you know? But at these bigger places, there's also a lot of the people that are buying Bitcoin now, they're buying $2 or $3 million worth of Bitcoin. And it's kind of those people that are, so there's a lot of money with inflows and outflows from the ETFs, but it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, there could be, passive. I'm joking, but there could be 1,000 people that have all the money that's coming in and out of it.
Yeah, it's just very passive and they're not looking at it the way true Bitcoiners are. Are you a believer that it's going to go to these levels that Saylor and others are predicting, like 13 million a coin? Do you think that it will soon underpin our global financial system? Do you have these optimistic views about it? Or do you think that it's going to be, I don't know, a longer journey to anything like that?
Well, it's always with Bitcoin, it's always a longer journey. But the ETF, when that happened and we hit like 71, I like cried because it had been so many years.
Yeah.
Because when you do these cycles, it hits this high and everyone's like, fuck TJ. You know, he told me about it and I didn't do it, but fuck him. He's probably a multi-billionaire. And then when it crashes, everybody's had this pent up fuck you. And so then they're like, stupid idiot. I knew it. I knew it from the start. And then when it comes back up, they sort of all have to eat crow. And yeah, so, you know, I think it's but the ETF hitting and then like, you know, just, I mean, this institutional adoption and then the strategic Bitcoin reserve, which I don't know exactly what that's going to be. But to begin, it's a good step because they're not buying Bitcoin. They're just like transferring funds into Bitcoin and then holding that. But I think if America starts really buying Bitcoin, then it'll be like a global arms race almost, but with money. And I think that would be the real game changer. Like what I was talking about is if they started buying Bitcoin and then other people did, they'd all be holding it, for the most part. And so not completely, but for the most part. And then I think Bitcoin would sort of make its way to like $500,000 or something. I don't know about $1 million, but then I get around to this place where I think we didn't know any of the things regarding Bitcoin that were happening 3 years ago. We just couldn't have totally imagined this. Yeah. So imagine what's going to happen in another 3 years. But I would be bullish that and I'm wearing bull elephant underwear. It's not funny. It's good luck. And so there was a moment where I thought she was going to be like, is he crying? Is he going to cry on my show? But I would think actually that in 7 years that we'd be looking at a pretty crazy price point.
Yeah. And
crazy price point can be like $750,000 or it could be
life-changing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Better than anything else I could possibly invest in, I think.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%, including NVIDIA or whatever.
Yeah. We don't have much time left, but I wanted to ask you something.
Which I'm sad about.
Me too.
Because these balloons, they last a week.
So when I was younger, my family immigrated here from Poland. And
that's what I was going to ask you.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, because my wife's Polish.
Oh, okay. I want to meet her.
Half Polish. You should. You guys would get along.
Well, so I watched a lot of movies and TV shows growing up. My parents always had something on, and the news too, just to help them learn English. But I just fell in love with movies. And there was a time where I considered wanting to be an actor. I went the journalism route instead. But I've just always been fascinated and captivated by cinematography and the filmmaking world. And I've seen the industry change so much. And I'm sure going down the rabbit hole, you've obviously, studied Broken Money. But I'm curious, do you have any takes on how Broken Money has impacted Hollywood and movie making? Because I personally feel like fiat has sort of infiltrated and we don't have as quality of movies and projects and scripts.
No, I think that's right. I mean, I think you have to remember that box office it's show business, not show art, as they say. So it's always been a business, but, there was a point when studios, it kind of, when musicals got really popular, that was because they were making a lot of money and it was people wanted to check out from sort of post-war era. And then, there was sort of, the first thing that comes to mind is like Easy Rider and sort of the 1970s. And that was all more art house feel to it. And then in the 90s, it became like glitzy box office comedies and, some superhero stuff. But I think when they started to realize that they could make $1 billion off of a movie, that they could actually, then they just said, how do we do this again and again? And so that was a little bit of it. But I like films like that. I was in Transformers 4 Age of Extinction. I know you guys saw it. It was a little indie art house film that swept the awards nationwide, and it's just about 2 hours too long. But I think from my perspective, big commercial art is something that I love. I love Warhol and W.C. Fields and Spielberg and Michael Bay and all that stuff. I just really, really get into. And so I'm happy with it. But I think, money has become the undercurrent and the underpinning factor in the creation of film right now. So I understand what you mean. And you would have been a great actor.
Oh, well, it was interesting because when I was growing up and I would watch some of the action movies like Mission Impossibles, all of a sudden in the beginning, it would turn into like a Chinese studio was one of the biggest producers and one of the main markets turned into China. And I just find the whole thing fascinating because we are all interconnected. And when money's broken here, well, yeah.
Not anymore, mama.
Things are changing. But it does. It's like, and I think it impacts actors and screenwriters and all that. And I was in LA for a long time, so I covered things like the writer's strike. And once again, it seemed like the average person who's working, who's trying to become an actor or a screenwriter, they have it really tough. But the studios are making like a ton of money off of these action movies or these CGI.
So here's what's so funny, and it relates to that earlier question you gave me. The studios are not like rolling in money, and there's now bigger studios are swallowing Paramount Pictures and all these, and so it's becoming bigger and bigger. But like Apple makes all its money from selling phones. Amazon Studios makes all their money from selling toilet paper and groceries. And Netflix is kind of struggling right now. HBO, which is now known as Max, is kind of a subsidiary of a larger. So, and all these answer to shareholders.
Yeah.
So what you have is these people making schlock to make as much money as possible because they end up answering to people that own shares in the company, not even the board. Because the board is just trying to get the stock price up so that more people buy the stock, valuation goes higher, all that stuff. So all of that is entrenched in broken money.
Yeah. And
I think Bitcoin is going to do a lot of things, but I think one of the things that it's going to do more than anything is Ed Julien, one of our favorite people, he has a great term, which is sort of the early majority.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. And I think once we get into that headspace, one of the coolest things that Bitcoin is going to do is going to change the way people think. And so it will make millionaires of many, many people. It will reward the people that studied for that 50 hours, 50. And I think it will help humanity think about things a little differently and then get to this next. It is. People always say it's the most exciting invention since the internet, but it is. And imagine the internet I remember because I was really young, but they call us the luckiest generation because I remember before the internet and pagers and payphones.
Yeah.
And then I remember the transition. And then I now, of course, know what it's like to live in sort of post that moment. And I remember the internet was you were just like, what the fuck is this for? Which is what we're dealing with right now. You'd be like, what is this for? Like, obviously you can download pornography and it just goes a single line at a time for 20 minutes. And you hope that it's not a little surprise winky downstairs. But for the most part, it just, from floppy disks to the idea that you could talk to somebody, type with them, and it was a real person somewhere in the world. Kind of like chat roulette I remember that was just such a mind blow.
AOL dial-up with the,
for sure.
Yeah. We're at that stage of Bitcoin.
yeah, that's exactly the stage we're in. 56K modem of money. 56K modem. I do a lot of combination words. That's a big part of my comedy. So it's that early majority is going to be rewarded, And I think, though, that a lot of people will sort of understand Bitcoin as like gold in the sense that people don't have gold, but they know what it is and they know its intrinsic value. I just wonder if I was going to wear gold chains today, but I forgot. And I was laughing about like, will people wear their Bitcoin on like digital ledgers and it'll say how much Bitcoin is on this thing. It'll show the price of Bitcoin digitally.
That's like the debt clock that Congressman Massey wears. It's like a live clock of our debt. You could have like a updated, you could wear like the block clock.
Yeah, exactly. No, it really would. And you would see, it's great. I would love that.
CoinKite needs to make that.
I need a medallion that's the Bitcoin price. Yeah. That would be funny.
Oh, well, I have earrings that are Bitcoin. So
no, I love them to death, but I'm saying the Bitcoin price constantly changing.
Something.
Those are beautiful
more.
Earrings, though.
Thank you.
They'd be great for a premiere for your first film.
For Ocean's 21.
Ocean's 21.
All right. Well, I wish we had more time, TJ. We'll have to do this again because I want to talk to you about so many more things. Where can people find you and support your work?
Teenage Millionaire. And that's because I used to dress like that. That's Instagram, not TJ Miller on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. And TJ Miller does not have a website.com. That's my website.
That's really your website? That's awesome.
TJ Miller does not have a website.com. You can go there. I have stand-up specials on YouTube,
Great.
which is at TJ Miller. And the current one, Dear Jonah, is great. But I have a lot of like stand-up stuff on. And TJ Miller does not have website.com. We'll show you where I'm performing because I tour all the country and the world, making people laugh and encouraging them to learn about Bitcoin.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Coin Stories. Make sure you're subscribed to the show so you don't miss any new episodes. If you can, turn on those notifications and leave us a positive review. They really help the show grow organically with new listeners. We have a free weekly newsletter. Sign up at thenewsblock.substack.com. This show is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Nothing should constitute as official investment advice, and you should always do your own research. I'm always open to feedback and guest suggestions, so please feel free to reach out at info@talkingbitcoin.com. I'll see you next time.